Hey, welcome to episode number 5 of the Debt Free Dad podcast. Today we're sharing tips to help you start your very first budget. Or heck, maybe it's been some time since you've done a budget. This podcast is definitely going to help you. Because if you want to get out of debt and kick financial stress, this magical tool needs to be a part of your daily life. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Debt Free Dad podcast, where we're helping normal, everyday people learn how to save money and kick debt so they can live a happier and stress-free life. Now here's your host, Debt Free Dad, Brad Nelson.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's show. You can find me on Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, and Instagram. Just search Brad Nelson, Debt Free Dad. I'd love for you to join one of our networks and get to talking to you about helping you with your personal finances. Or maybe you got a question. You can share that right there on some of those social networks. We'll be happy to help you in any way that we can. So, guys, check this out. One of the coolest gifts that I got for Christmas was an air fryer. And we literally have been air frying every single thing that we can find.
I'm jealous.
Oh, it's actually really, I was a little nervous about it. I was like, is it really going to be that good? And don't get me wrong. I mean, it definitely has it has a different taste to some of the foods. But I love it. I think it's fantastic. I
was watching a video this morning that she said you could actually cook hard-boiled eggs in them.
Oh yeah. Like this little thing has like settings for like pizza and like pork chop. We did pork chops, stuffed pork chops, bacon wrapped stuffed pork chops. They were amazing. They're so good.
You're making me hungry.
Yeah. I
haven't tried it. I haven't jumped on the air fryer bandwagon, so
yeah,
maybe you could sell me on it.
We go to, what's that, Ryan, you probably know, and the name is still being in my mind right now. What's the kind of popular chain, like Chinese type restaurant? What is that? P.F. Chang's.
Yeah, P.F. Chang's.
P.F. Chang's. So they have lettuce wraps there, and Sarah has pretty much mastered that recipe, so she makes them at home, and instead of using lettuce, she just got these little wonton wrappers and put the fillings inside that and air fry. Oh my gosh, they were so amazing. They are so good. The other night she made just regular shrimp egg rolls. I'm in heaven right now. It's amazing. And it's healthy too. I mean, obviously if you eat about 10 egg rolls, it's probably not healthy anymore, but there's still a lot less calories in it. So I'm just going to make myself feel better on that.
We'll just convince ourselves, right?
Right. Exactly. All right, everyone. So in today's show, we're going to be tackling the big bad B word, the budget. And according to a Gallup poll done back in mid-decade of, I think it was like 2013, 2014, the last time they surveyed, only 32% of households have a working household budget. That means that the other 68% have no idea what's going on with their money. That means 7 out of 10 people have no plan for their finances. And ironically, and we share this statistic regularly here on this podcast, 8 out of 10 people are living, almost 8 out of 10 people are living paycheck to paycheck. And there are so many people that are looking for that secret ingredient or that financial success or that, secret sauce, so to speak. And the budget, I believe, is one of the most important tools to help you save more money, pay off debt, kick financial stress, and finally be able to reach financial freedom. And I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again, the budget has changed my life. And I know that the word budget can have this negative feeling to it, but once you change that mindset about it, I think your finances are going to drastically improve. And I see that time and time again with our members. So the first thing when it comes to doing your budget is you've got to commit to it. Like, that's the first thing that you got to make happen. Forget about writing everything down, forgetting about what tools you need to do, forget about all of that, because if you can't commit to it, none of the other stuff is going to matter, right?
Yeah. And I think we lived in our budget for 20 months easy. I just looked at it all the time, every single day. I look at it a little less now because we have more of a handle on what we're doing, but I lived with it.
Yeah. It becomes something like you eat, sleep, and drink with.
Yeah. And it made all the difference.
Yeah.
It sounds a little over the top, but seriously, once you get into it, you're like, I need to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're bad with money, though, I will say, like during my early years of being bad with money, and then like, yeah, we're going to do a budget. And then it'd be like, we're only going to spend $100 going out to eat this month. And then like the third day, I'm like, well, it's gone. Let's just go out to eat. Like, that was just a lot more fun because it's like, we don't really mean it. We're going to write it down, but we don't really mean it because, then I got to actually do it.
Yeah. You do have to follow the plan. And that's where that behavior stuff comes in that we talk about quite often on this podcast. Yeah. You got to change those behaviors that get you into that. But, when it comes to committing, a lot of people think, I got to spend all this time on it. And yes, initially when you first start, you do have to spend some time on it. There's no question. I used kind of the example as kind of like if you moved into a house or say you have a backyard that desperately needs some landscaping. It's full of weeds and there's rocks and you just need to work the ground to get all that stuff taken care of. Yeah, initially the work is going to be hard. You're going to sweat. You're going to bleed. It's not going to be fun. But with a short period of time of that hard work, you can get it to where you want it. And then after that, it's all about just maintaining it and making sure everything's in place. And that's ultimately how a budget and really your finances are going to work as time goes on and as you practice this stuff. Ultimately, I think when it comes down to your finances, I think you could probably get down to where you only have to spend about 15 minutes a day on some of the stuff that we're talking about once you make this so automatic. Ultimately, 15 minutes a day, looking at your budget, seeing what future expenses are coming up, making sure you're tracking your expenses, and all that should take is 15 minutes a day after you get things into motion. So the other thing I want to talk about is that it's not just about how much you make. Now, Ryan, you talk about your little sign back there because that's perfect for what we're talking about right now. It's not just about how much money you make.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of us think that next raise is what's going to help me get, that's what's really going to put us over the top, or you're going to take a job because I'm going to make more money. And the reality is if you've got bad habits, that next raise is going to go to more debt. It's going to just more debt. You're going to buy more stuff. It's not going to fix anything. It's just something that you tell yourself. So you've got to fix the bad habit of spending money and being bad with money. Then the money you make can have a huge impact. But if you just have bad habits, you can make tons of money. And I've seen people make, I've seen people make tons and tons of money, and they're still in debt.
Yep. So I want to share this article with everybody here today. I'm going to put it in the show notes, and it's about Ryan Lochte, who is a Olympic swimmer. And there was this article on CNBC not too long ago. This was actually back in November of 2019. And the headline is, Olympic swimmer Ryan Lochte went from earning millions to living paycheck to paycheck. And here's what he learned. So just real quick, it says, Ryan Lochte knows what it feels like to be on top. The American swimmer won his first Olympic gold medal at 2004 game in Athens when he was 20. And between 2004 and 2016, he collected a total of 12 Olympic medals, making him one of the world's most decorated swimmers and earned millions along the way. But the world-class athlete also knows what it feels like to hit rock bottom, and a scandal during the 2016 Summer Olympics in Rio de Janeiro resulted in a 10-month suspension and the loss of his major sponsors. 2 years later, Lochte was suspended again by the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency for receiving an intravenous vitamin B12 infusion. But during that time, he lost nearly all of his career earnings. He tells Alex Rodriguez on a 2019 episode of CNBC's Back in the Game, in which Rodriguez helps athletes bounce back after damaging their reputation and finances. Lochte says he went from making well over $1 million a year to earning just $75,000 from a single sponsor. When Rodriguez met with him, he and his wife had already downsized from a 4,200 square foot home to an 1,800 square foot apartment, but Lochte was still spending beyond his means and was quickly headed into debt. He estimated he had about $20,000 in savings, though he admitted that he hadn't looked at his bank account in 2 years. And he says the humiliating or the humbling experience has taught him that money doesn't grow on trees. And Lochte tells CNBC, you've got to be smart. Any paycheck that you get, whether it's $5 or $50,000, you have to put some away no matter what. So I wanted to share that because it really rings true to this whole point, is that it's not just about the money. And there's a lot of people who feel that way. Like, if I just make more money, that's going to fix all my problems. No, it's what you do with the money that you're making. Now, granted, once you have a good financial plan, the more money you can feed that plan, the better it's going to work. There's no question about that. That's just math. But if you don't have the plan, it's really not going to matter how much money you make. I actually had, guys, I had a financial coach colleague that worked on the West Coast, and we used to meet with her regularly, and she used to work with people who made 7 figures, like crazy amounts of money. And she would tell me, these people are just as broke as, say, someone who makes $40,000 a year. She's like, yeah, they have a shinier wrapper and they might look better. They have better stuff. But at the end of the day, they're nowhere any better than, say, someone who's making $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year because they have the same exact financial habits. So when it comes to budgeting and your finances, you got to get that out of your head. More money is not going to be the ultimate answer. It can help, but you got to have that good plan. And having that good plan is all about budgeting. So the first thing you got to do when you're budgeting is understand where you're at. So, guys, what I recommend, and you guys know this, is I recommend, going out and printing out your past bank statements and your credit card statements and starting to figure out where the heck your money's going. And I think that's critically important to, start figuring out, because a lot of people ask the question, what do I start writing down? So what did you guys do when you first started that helped you kind of determine what to start putting down on some of these budget forms?
Well, we did the, print out your statements and stuff like that. But we also, that helped us find ways to cut so that we knew kind of where we needed to maybe cut back and then add a little bit more here and there to help get rid of the debt a little quicker.
Yeah, for us, it was, it was more of that come to Jesus moment of, printing everything out and trying to get a really, really good feeling and understanding of where we were spending our money. Because it was, in the years in my previous, like I said, we would write these budgets and they just weren't accurate because we didn't even know what we were spending our money on. So it's like, yeah, we're going to do a budget, but it's not realistic if you don't know where you're going. So for us, it was knowing what we're spending our money on and then being able to say, okay, we're spending on average this on going out to eat. What's realistic? What can we really do, or what could we agree on to spend a month going out to eat?
Yeah, there's definitely got to be that review time, and I think that's where a lot of people miss it. And that's where I missed it when I first started budgeting too, is I would do a lot of the same stuff. I'd write down a budget and I wouldn't follow it exactly, or things didn't work out exactly the way that I planned. But then on the next budget, I wouldn't fix it because I would never review. Okay, well, did I spend too much in groceries? Did we spend too much going out to eat? Like, what were the real issues? So I think there's definitely got to be that review process. There's no question. So, but once you're done understanding kind of where you're at, you kind of know, okay, this is what we're currently spending. Now you can start listing out, and all you really need to get started is just a yellow pad of paper and a pencil. That's it. You don't need any, we're going to talk a little bit about tools and some apps here in just a little bit, but you don't really need any of that when you first get started. I just recommend a pad of paper and a pencil and just start writing this stuff down and start coming up with, okay, on a monthly average, we spent X amount of dollars on groceries. So this is what we're going to put down for the first month of our budget. We're going to put down whatever that amount is, $600, $700 a month. So it's time to just write it down. It's also really important to take time to start figuring out how much money you've got coming in. And, a lot of people, even myself included, when I first started doing this, we don't really look at our paychecks. And, when maybe it's been a while since you've been working at your job for a while. Maybe you've signed up for different health insurance plans, or you've opted in for different things to get taken out of your paycheck. Well, if you're not looking at those things on a regular basis, you might be spending money on things that you don't necessarily need nor want anymore. So make sure you check out that pay stub and make sure you look at those paydays and make sure you write down an accurate number of the money that you have coming in. The big thing, I think, and we've kind of talked about this a little bit on the show before, is prioritizing savings and necessities first. And we talk all about how important it is to have that emergency fund. And I think when it comes to your budget, one of the very first things you should get in the habit of is trying to set, and I know this can be hard when you first get started if you're living paycheck to paycheck, but is trying to at least get in the habit of starting to set something aside for a savings account. And I know for me, and guys, you guys can tell me how you feel about this, but when I first started, I wasn't able to save a lot of money in that savings account when I first started either. I mean, it was sometimes only $20, $30, $40, $50 a month. That wasn't much. But seeing that number slowly grow, and especially as I got better with my budget and with my behavior, I was able to make it grow faster. It felt really good to see that savings grow. There's no question.
For us, we did it quick. I think we had it in 30 days. So we just kind of crunched and did it.
Yeah. That's because Amber and Paul are rock stars.
Far from it. We messed up a lot.
Yeah, it's hard because I think I just kind of think back of when we were going through it. And especially when we, were trying to, okay, we're really going to get out of debt. The idea of saving at the time was just so, I don't know. I just thought it was just ridiculous thought that we're going to be able to save money. And so I think it was really hard for us at first. And so I think it took us cutting back things. But you're right, it was a very small amount, but just anything felt like, man, we saved $50 this month. Like that's a big win when you've never saved $50 ever. To save $50 or even $10, whatever it is. If you've never saved any money, don't discredit it as, well, it's not $200 a month, so it's not enough. If you've saved $10, you do that a whole year and you've saved $120, that's something to celebrate if you've never saved before.
Yeah. And that's the key thing. You just said celebrate it. And a lot of people don't. And that's why it's so important to do that budget review to see, okay, what did I actually achieve this month? Yes, it's important to see the bad habits. Yes, it's important to see where you screwed up. But at the same time, it's also important to see what you actually did well. And because there's going to be some months where you're going to have to really kind of grasp at some straws because some people are in some really tough spots. And again, saving $50 a month is a huge win if you're living paycheck to paycheck. So make sure you take time to recognize some of those things. When it comes to prioritizing your necessities, though, I do want to hit on this. So we've already kind of said, understand where you're at, then go through, list out your paydays and your expenses, okay? Now we're going to prioritize saving and necessities first. So the first things that you should start putting on your budget are the most important things. These are the things that allow you to fight another day. So things like your food, so make sure you're feeding yourself, and we're going to talk on this one here in just a second. Your mortgage and your rent, all right? Your basic utilities, and obviously your transportation or your vehicle needs, okay? I want to hit on the food real quick because this one hits close home to me. Before my wife and I got married, I would regularly go to her house and she would have an empty refrigerator on a regular basis. I mean, there'd be a few things in there, but there wouldn't be a lot in there. And it really never kind of hit me on why that might have been. Now, I knew that Sarah was struggling with her personal finances. I knew that there was some struggles that were happening. I just didn't really quite know how bad it was until finally she had came over and asked for help. And I started looking through her budget and I was like, she was only spending like around $50 a month on groceries to feed herself. I was like, there's just no way. I was like, how is this possible? She's like, well, look at all the other numbers. I don't have any money to feed myself. And then it hit me. I've been dating her for almost a year at this point, going to her house, and she didn't even have enough money, nor was she budgeting enough money to feed herself. That's how bad her situation had gotten. And the stress had gotten so bad that she started to make some pretty poor decisions when it came to her finances. And that's where this stuff can get a little dangerous. All right. So that's why I want to make sure that you have permission in this podcast when we're telling you about this budget stuff. Make sure you prioritize these necessities first. Nothing else should get paid before these things do. Okay. And it's not just my wife who's done this. I've had countless people come to me. I had one person, I was on a speaking event. I can't remember what city I was in. And this person, I think it was Rochester, New York, I believe. And this person had come up to me after I was done speaking in tears and said, I am 3 days away from getting evicted. And I said, well, why is that happening? Because I chose to pay my credit card bills instead of my rent. And she was 3 days away from being put out on the street. Now, some people on the outside, and you guys tell me, I mean, because you guys probably are thinking, why would someone do that? Because I've had people say that. That's a stupid decision. Well, when you're under a lot of financial stress, you tend to make stupid decisions that make your situation that much worse because you're under that stress. You're not thinking clearly. You're not thinking right. So that's why I want to give you permission to do this now, because there's going to become a time where you might have to make a tough decision. And I want you to make sure that you're paying those necessities first, and then you're taking care of all of the other items. No question.
I mean, we do that, and there were times when during our journey, we probably wanted to pay something and we should have paid more, and a lot of that just stems from you want to do the right thing. You know where you're at. You've gotten to the situation of where you're at. And I think a lot of us realize that we messed up, and we know that we messed up and we feel bad. So we're trying to please everybody. You're trying to please, you don't want the credit card people to be mad. You don't want your mortgage people to be mad. So you start like just trying to, but the big thing is like, if you got a job and you got to get to your job, you don't want to be current on your credit card payment and you're about to get your car taken away that you can't get to your job. That's going to be a huge problem.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to kind of hit on, I did mention transportation needs, by the way. That is not me. Now, these guys, Amber and Ryan can speak for themselves, but that is not Brad giving you permission to have a $600 car payment, by the way. That is not basic transportation needs, okay? That's like really expensive. So if you're struggling living paycheck to paycheck, yeah, you may want to consider your car situation if your payments are super high. I'm talking real basic transportation needs. Nothing super substantial. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here in just a moment. Hey, imagine a life without payments and debt. I'm telling you, it's possible. Now, I recently launched an incredible free workshop that will walk you through the first steps to reaching a stress-free and debt-free life. Now, the information that we're sharing inside this workshop has helped people save and pay off millions of dollars. And we've had thousands of people now register for this workshop. Now, I was broke at one time too. But by following a simple process, I paid off all of my debts, and I now live completely debt-free. And getting out of debt, it's not an easy road. This is hard work. So I know also what works and what doesn't work. And that's why we created this fantastic success path that's removing all of the confusion, and it's helping ordinary people have massive results. And I just want to share our success path with you in this workshop. Now, the goal of the workshop is really simple. We want to help you reduce stress. We want to provide you immediate and clear direction, also give you some really helpful insights, and give you some really cool tips to help you discover some of the first steps, some of the first things that you should work on as you get on the road to financial freedom. So head on over to therealdebtfreedad.com, click on Tools and Courses in the menu, and get free access to this course today. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Debt Free Dad podcast. Today, we're sharing tips to help you start your very first budget. And if you want to get out of debt, kick financial stress, this magical tool needs to be a part of your daily life. You know, one thing I didn't mention is that when you first get started, it's messy. Can you guys agree? I mean, I sucked at this when I first started, and I was pretty bad at it for quite a while.
Oh, yeah. We messed up so much. We'd eat out too much, or we do overspend somewhere, and then we'd have to scramble to find ways to compensate for our mix-ups.
Yeah, you're not going to be good at this when you start. You've been bad with money up to this point, and having a budget the first month isn't like the magic cure-all, and all of a sudden you're perfect at it. The very first month or two or three or four or five are going to be painful, and you'll learn as you go. But yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah. I was just, I can't say it enough to some of our members who say that they just feel so frustrated within the first couple of months. And that's just all normal. It means you're trying. If you're not feeling that frustration, it means you're not really doing anything. But that frustration is a sign that you're at least trying and you're working through some of this stuff. So to kind of hit on real quick some of these tips, I want to make sure that you guys are all on the same page here. Remember, understand where you're at. So print out those bank statements. Make sure you see where your money's going. The next one is list your paydays and your expenses, okay? You're actually going to write this down on your pad of paper. Then you're going to prioritize when you actually start putting down your budget numbers. Prioritize and pay first your savings account and then the necessities first. So again, the food, mortgage, rent, utilities, and transportation. Once you got all of that done, then you're just going to go through and list out all of the other expenses that you would have. Insurance, doctor's bills, going out to eat, because that's not considered groceries, any sort of lifestyle things, subscriptions, getting your hair done. All of those types of things are then going to be listed. All right. So then once you list all of those items on your sheet, then you're just going to total up all of your paydays, total up all of your expenses, and you're going to subtract the two numbers. So paydays minus expenses is going to give you a number. And that number is either going to be negative or it's going to be a positive number. Now, if it's a negative number, guys, that means that we don't have enough money in our account. So what are some suggestions that you guys could give that, people might be able to do to help them not be negative?
Well, you could look at where you budgeted some of your money. If it's not a necessity, you might want to cut it out for now, or get a side hustle. I personally, my husband and I, instead of going out on dates all the time, we started doing a delivery service for food, and we just go and deliver food for a few hours in an evening, and we make some money doing that.
Yeah.
And we currently have a dog at the house right now because we've been watching people's animals for extra cash. And we've been doing this budget thing for a while, but it's always nice to just add a little more so we could save a little more to do more things that we want to do.
Yeah. How is that food? I know, Ryan, you did that for a little bit too. So I'm interested to see how you guys, because that might be good for someone out there because they might need some extra money. So I want you guys to talk about how has that worked out for you? I know it's two different companies that you guys have done it with, but how much extra money has it really kind of brought in when you're doing it, seriously, I guess you would say?
Yeah. I mean, the place I did it for, they've changed a bunch of rules. So I can't do it just due to the rule changes they made. But we, I think I did it for 3 months and I made almost $1,500. That doesn't include taxes. Obviously taxes come out of that. But we went on a trip this year to Universal Studios, and I basically just worked that job for our spending money. I just delivered food for a few months and made $1,500, and now I have spending money that we don't have to worry about taking that out of our budget somewhere else.
Yeah, I love that. But yeah, Amber's exactly right. So essentially, if you've got that negative number, what I would suggest is start going through your budget line by line. What is a need versus what is a want? And that's the question you're going to need to ask yourself. And you can still have wants in your budget, but maybe they're not as much money towards that budget if you have a negative. Now, if you have a positive number, that's actually not a bad thing because that means you have extra money left over once all of your bills and expenses are paid. Now, I'm a firm believer that you should never use the words, I have extra money. And I think that's because extra money gets spent. All right. So if you call it extra money, you easily could spend, we have extra money. Let's go out to eat. Or we have extra money. Let's go buy this thing at the store, or whatever it might be. When you give it a name, it changes the game. I just made that rhyme. Look at that. But when you give it a name, it changes the game. It really does. So, for instance, we've talked about how important it is to build an emergency fund. Again, hopefully your goal is to reduce the amount of debt that you have. So maybe you give that name Visa or the Home Depot card or whatever it is that you're trying to pay off. You give that money an assignment. You give that a small goal. And it can go to wherever you want, but you've got to give it something. If you don't, more than likely that money is going to walk off on its own. And I know from personal experience, you guys can share maybe some of your, I know from personal experience, if I didn't assign that money, even today, I'm debt-free. If I don't, we find a way to spend it.
I love extra money. I think going through this whole process has really changed our mindset on that. But up through that, that's just always how I viewed it. Tax return was extra money. Bonus at work was extra money. Birthday money was extra money. Everything was just like, we don't have to pay our debts with this. It's extra. Like, no, it's still money. You just have to decide what you're doing with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although usually like 3 days later, we're like, what do we do with all that money?
Isn't that funny how it works? Right. That's why it's so important to do the budget review and to make sure, because you can see what you've done, what you have achieved, what you've been able to purchase. And it's okay to recognize what you spent money on. You work hard for your money. If you spend it on something that you like, it's cool to acknowledge that. And if you're constantly in the spending pattern, though, you can tend to forget some of the cool things that you spend money on, and you kind of get in that habit of just more, and more. So it's important to kind of look at that budget review. What are some cool things that we spent money on this month? And what are some not so cool things that we did with our money that we need to kind of fix in the coming months ahead? Let's talk a little bit about the calendar system to forecast bills, paydays, and cash flow plans. This is one of the reasons why we're going to talk a little bit about this, why we created back in late 2019 the Debt Freedom Planner. And I'm a visual person. For those of you who don't know, before I was a financial coach, a long time ago, I went to school for graphic design. In fact, all the artwork and everything that you see in our brand, I actually personally do all of that for our business. And so I'm a visual person. I like to see things. So for me, it was always very helpful. In fact, on my bookshelf behind me, if you're watching this on YouTube, I've got binders of our past budgets. Those were our Debt Freedom Planners. They were homemade, but we've got calendars in there. We've got listings of all of our bills that would come out. Like, it made it very visual for us. So if you don't have a planner that you use, I would just print out a basic calendar and start writing out in that calendar, when are my paydays and when are those bills coming out? Because this can easily visually show you what's happening with your money and where you might have some bottlenecks and where you might be short. Banks make billions of dollars on overdraft fees, and that's simply because a lot of people aren't paying attention to their money. And using a calendar system like this to forecast out your bills and your cash flow plan can be really, really, really helpful in keeping things organized and helping you see things that are happening rather than just looking at a bunch of numbers.
Yeah, I used for years I still have it. It's on my desk, just a big desk calendar. And I've always done it. I got this idea from a job that I used to work at, and I just used it for my personal bills, and it works fantastic because it's always in my face. It's on my desk, so I know what's coming in when and what needs to go out when. And I've moved payments around. If it wasn't working out, I've asked insurance companies or anything like that to move my payment to a different date, and most of the time they'll do it.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't even have that in the notes today, Amber. Saving the show.
Thanks.
But seriously, no, for real. I mean, that's a perfect example of using this calendar system and saying, holy crap, I got a lot of stuff coming out on the 15th of the month every month. I need to fix this. Like, this is why we're starting to have some issues around that time of the month.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and we've done the same thing. And it was one of those things that we didn't even know you could do that. We were like, can you do that? And then when we called places, a lot of them were just like, oh yeah, it's not a problem. We'll just take it out this day. Because a lot of times when you get your insurance, for example, it's just maybe the day you went in to sign up is, that we're going to start taking it out on this day. But if you just said, hey, can we push that? A lot of the companies will work with you on that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't found one that hasn't been willing to. In fact, a lot of and again, I haven't had debt in years, but I know like a lot of even like the regular service, like our cell phones. I think when we signed up we just recently changed carriers, and I think when we changed, we were able to select when we wanted our payment to come out. I know with our electric company, we can call them and we can change those dates where those things come out. So I would strongly recommend, if you're having those bottlenecks, make sure you check that out. But that calendar system for a lot of people is very, very helpful. It takes the nerdiness and the numbers out of it. And again, it makes it a much more visual experience. And I think a lot of people have a lot more easier time. So have your budget and then have your calendar of when all of that stuff kind of takes place throughout your month. And I think you'll find it be a lot more easy. Let's talk a little bit about some helpful tools and apps. And I think, Amber, I'm not going to steal your thunder. I think I know what you use to budget, but what do you guys use to budget?
I use a spreadsheet.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I definitely use a spreadsheet, and it's just something I open up on a regular basis and update probably 5 times a week at least.
Okay.
Yeah, it's we do spreadsheet, but then we are big advocates of the envelope system.
Yep.
So for us, that has probably been, at least for our experience, probably been one of the bigger game changes for us is the envelope system and making we got to buy the kids school clothes. Oh, here's the money because we've been saving for it. Looks like we should.
So for those who don't know the envelope system, can you explain how that works in your guys' house and what you guys do?
Yeah. So kind of going back to, what your typical things are, the food, your priorities of food, mortgage, rent, utilities, like the things that you have to pay for every month. They're roughly the same cost every month. They don't fluctuate. Those are just the things that we pay out of our checking account. For other things like clothing for myself and my wife, clothing for our kids, vacation, what we call just fun money, money that my wife and I that we just take for ourselves, and we can kind of do whatever we want with that. So we have, I don't know, there's probably 12 or 14 categories that we've created. And every time we get paid, a certain amount of money goes into each of those envelopes to fund that sort of stuff. So we know on average, like our kids' clothes for school are this much money. So as we put the money in the envelopes, when it comes to June or July for school shopping, we've been saving it and it's there. Now, for anybody listening, we don't keep it all here. It goes in a savings account.
So what's your address again?
So it's all, but it's just there and it's already designated. So even though it's in our savings account, we have an envelope, it's all written on it. We know exactly what's in it. So when we go take it out of our savings account, that's what we're taking out.
Yeah. And just as an extra tip, and I'm hoping to do a podcast episode on this coming up later this year, but Scientifically, it's been proven that you're less likely to overspend with cash than you are with, say, plastic, even using a debit card. So that's why there's another really cool reason on why you want to start using more cash in your life. And I know we're, as society and as the kind of the years go on, we're getting further and further away, removed from cash, but there is still a lot of value in there. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. So I would definitely take advantage of it if you can. Statistically, you just look at some of the numbers, and even McDonald's, when they went from a complete cash operation and they transferred over to credit cards, they even showed a significant increase in their per order transaction because they started taking credit cards. So, if you're using debit card and credit cards for everything, you might find that you might save a significant amount of money based on, like what Ryan's talking about, the envelope system. It's the same system that we share in Roots Personal Finance. It's the same system that we also use too. I think you're going to find that it's going to be almost a lifesaver in the sense of saving you more money. I see it all the time. In fact, when I'm at events, I'll be there presenting, and I'll be at a table where we're talking about the business and what we do. And I'll have people, some of our members, they'll run up to us and they'll open up their bags or open up their wallet and say, look at all this cash I brought with it. I'm doing so good, because it holds you more accountable. It's a lot harder to hand over real money than it is to swipe a card, or nowadays just hold up your phone, which is so weird now that you can do that. So let's talk about some other tools that are out there. There's another tool called YNAB. You Need a Budget. So that's a really popular one. I have used that one. It has, some positives and some negatives, but You Need a Budget is one. Obviously, Mint is another one. You can definitely check out Mint. I've used that budget. That was quite a while ago. I used that budget app. That's a really nice one. Another popular one is Every Dollar. Every Dollar follows the zero-based budgeting system. That's one of the ones that I've used on a regular basis. Very easy to use. The nice thing about some of these apps, too, is that you can share them between partners. So, for instance, like my wife has the app on her phone. I have the app on my phone. If she goes grocery shopping or puts gas in the car, I automatically will see that transaction on my app, and they talk to each other. So it's really, really nice if you got two people. Here's the deal, though. Here's what I'm going to tell you based on my experience in helping hundreds and even thousands of people now with this stuff, is that I find people have the most success as starting out with just a yellow pad of paper and a pencil. Now, I know that there are some people who are completely against that, and that's totally fine. I'm just telling you what I find works for most people, is just sitting down with a paper and a pencil. And even scientifically, it's been proven that when you write things down, when your brain transfers information from your brain down to your hand and onto that piece of paper, you are more likely to remember what you wrote down as opposed to what you type into an app. And that's going to be really important to changing those financial behaviors. Remember, we're all talking about changing this mindset. And I'm a big fan of using things that naturally just work. Like I said, scientifically, cash works. It's going to spend less. Scientifically, writing down your goals, you're going to stick to them more often. That's why I believe, at least as you first get started, you should write down as much as you possibly can. Obviously, some other tools that we have is the Debt Freedom Planner. And again, we're not about shoving our tools in front of your face, but these are just things that we've created to help people with this stuff, to help them overcome some of the challenges of starting their budget. So we've got the Debt Freedom Planner, and then obviously we've got a complete and very thorough budgeting course called Brad's Totally Awesome Budgeting Course. You can find that at therealdebtfreedad.com.
I think it's important to kind of, as you talk about tools and apps and all these things that are out there. I was a big, again, tech nerd, love spreadsheets. I could make a budget look super pretty. It didn't do any good if you're not going to commit to it. So I think as you look at all these tools and all these apps that we're talking about, you got to commit to it for it to work, because it can look really fancy and it doesn't do anything if you just do it and then put it away.
Yep. Yeah, that kind of goes back to how we kicked off the podcast, to just saying, it's not going to be the next latest in tool. It's not going to be our course. It's not going to be the Debt Freedom Planner. It's going to be you. You've got to commit to it. Absolutely. No question about it.
Yep. Hey, what's this I see? I thought this was a party. Let's dance!
Hey, so Kevin Bacon means that it's time for celebrations of the show. So we posted back on our Brad Nelson Debt Free Dad Business Facebook page. By the way, if you do not follow us, go ahead and give us a like on there, because we are regularly interacting with our listeners and people who are following this podcast. But we asked people, this was back right as 2019 was ending, and I wanted to know, what were some of the financial achievements that people were very proud of that they achieved or that maybe they reached back in 2019? So we pulled about 6 of them out of that group. There were a lot of comments, by the way, not only in that, but also in our free Facebook group called Life Without Payments. There were a lot of comments, a lot of great celebrations. So for all of you who are working hard, man, continue to keep doing that work. That is amazing. So impressive. But here were just a couple. We've got Rebecca Jackson Bowling. They said that they have paid off $31,000 this year. And we only have $17,000 and we're debt free. So looking at those numbers, likely before the end of 2020, they are going to be celebrating debt freedom. That is fantastic. Congratulations to you guys. We've got Ashley Bertucci. Check this out, guys. She paid off her house. Incredible.
Wow.
Who lives in a paid-for house?
Not me yet.
We're working on that. We're working on that one. Christina Tharp, longtime Roots personal finance member, also completely debt-free, fully funded. 6-month emergency fund. Good for Christina. Congratulations to you. And Amanda Trudeau. Amber, check this out. Did you see the celebration?
I did not. Now I can't wait to hear it.
I didn't even hear this news. Amanda's a past Roots member, became debt-free this year, bought a new car with cash, brought my kids to Mexico, also paid cash. She's doing the happy dance, she says over there. I would be doing the happy dance too. Those are some pretty fantastic celebrations. In fact, I didn't even put it in here, but she even said, Brad, that was more than one celebration, but that's okay. And then Sandra Simmons, also a Roots member. I paid off my Sally Mae student loan that I've had forever. So congratulations to you, kicking Sally Mae to the curb. Congratulations. And then lastly, Jackie Jackson Daly, credit card debt officially gone. When we started with you 2 years ago, it was over $30,000. So no more credit cards. Imagine that. To all of you listening right now, imagine waking up and just having no more credit cards. That's a pretty fantastic feeling. In fact, it's such a fantastic feeling that I always have my little cut-up credit card right here. If you're watching this on YouTube, you see me holding it up. That's my last credit card I ever paid off, and I keep this as a memento of never going back because it feels so amazing. So congratulations to all of you who are working so hard. Great celebrations on this podcast show today. Keep them up, and we're going to keep asking for those because we love celebrating all of you and your success. Hey, do you have a question about your finances? If so, send me an email at brad@therealdebtfreedad.com, and we will try to get your question on an upcoming episode of the Debt Free Dad podcast. Question today, very timely, considering that we were talking about budgets, and that was not done on accident because this is a question that we get on a regular basis. But it says, hey, guys, I have a regular income, and my paydays are always different. Some months are better than others. How do I budget when I don't really know what it is that I'm going to make? Amber, I'm going to pick on you immediately because you run your own business. You have a regular income. So what would you advise this person if they have a regular income? What can they do?
It took some time to get this started, but I started working a month behind. So it probably took a few months to even just get this going. But now, so let's say I earn money in December, I don't touch it. I use that money and I pay myself in January. And that's how I've been working my irregular income. And it changed the way I run my business. It's made it so much less stress, worrying like, oh my gosh, I'm not making as much money this month. What am I going to do? How am I going to pay my bills? Because I already know. So I already budgeted for the amount that I'm earning. So if you can get yourself to that, whether it's with a tax refund and just kind of help float you over to that, that would be the ultimate way to plan for a regular income.
The month behind system is amazing if you make a regular income. No question. So, like Amber said, though, it takes time to set this up because you've essentially got to live on something while your income builds up for 1 month. And the best time to do that is when you typically will get money coming in that you normally wouldn't. A tax return time is a really good one. Or let's say you are a commission salesperson, you get bonuses. or maybe you're like Amber or I, you run your own business and you have a really good month, whatever it might be. Those are going to be the times where you want to stick a little bit more money aside so you can get to the point where you can live off of savings, let that money build up, and essentially the money that you're making in the current month will go to fund the next month's bills. So it takes all the guessing out, essentially. So you don't have to think, oh, am I going to have enough money? No, you already are going to have a known number because you've already made the money. You're paying yourself on the first of the month. Now you take that money and budget out the rest of the next upcoming month. So it is a fantastic system. The other thing you want to make sure is you want to make sure that you have a budget more so than anybody else if you have a regular income. That's absolutely critical because you don't have a regular paycheck coming in. So you really want to make sure that you've got a pulse on your finances on a regular basis. The other big question that you need to answer if you make a regular income is, and this all kind of goes back to what we talked about today in today's budgeting show, is how much money do you need to make to meet all of your bills and all of your goals? What is that number for you? Is that $2,000 a month? Is it $3,000 a month? Whatever that is. You have to know what that number is, all right? Now, one of the best things that you can do is if you're not using the month behind system, what I suggest to people is when they first get started, we talked to kind of hit on it today when we talked about budgeting, is you're going back and printing out your past bank statements, right? Start looking at historical data. What have you been getting paid? And again, this depends on what type of job you have and how long you've been there. But if you've been working at this job for a while, you should have historical data about how much money you've been bringing in on a monthly basis. Then just get an average. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be better than nothing. It's going to be better than saying, I don't know what I'm going to make, so I'm not going to budget anymore. So once you have that average, you can then put that on your budget form to start budgeting out how you're going to use that money month after month. And again, it's not going to be perfect because, again, that is going to fluctuate month to month. The other thing you want to make sure you do when you have a regular income when it comes to your budgeting, we talked about prioritizing your necessities in this podcast. When you have a regular income, you want to prioritize your entire budget because there may be months where you may not have enough money to cover all of your bills. And that's why I would strongly recommend having an emergency fund savings or maybe a slush fund or something or some kind that you can depend on during some of those kind of valley months. You're going to have peaks, you're going to have valleys in your income if you have a regular income. So having some savings to depend on during those valley times is going to be really, really critical. All right. But that's why you want to prioritize it from most important to least because you're going to pay it with the known money that you have. Pay it in that order. Whatever you can't pay, you can use your savings account to cover, all right? If you have extra, well, then you can do what we've talked about in this budgeting. Maybe you pay down debt, maybe you save a little bit of money, whatever it might be, all right? So those are going to be some ways. How you figure it out, look at historical data, eventually work your way to the month behind system, but I make a regular income. My wife makes a regular income. It is possible to be very, very successful with budgeting, making a regular income. You just got to start learning your numbers, learning your averages, and putting the pencil to the paper, and I think you're going to find that it's going to be really, really successful for you. Hey, everybody, thanks for hanging out with us today. We love your feedback, and it also helps us grow our podcast. Please leave us an honest review in Apple Podcasts. We read every single one of those. And as you know, the Debt Free Dad podcast is here to help you live a happier and stress-free financial life. So if you know someone who could benefit from our show, please give us a share. We would greatly appreciate that. And we also appreciate you. And we're going to see you on our next episode. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Debt Free Dad podcast. For more free resources to kick debt and financial stress, head over to therealdebtfreedad.com.